Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started. We see our attorney has arrived.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the interest of time, may we call the regularly scheduled board meeting of the Port Arthur EDC to order at 6:10, August the 5th. If I may ask for a roll call, please.
Beverly Raymond. Kayla Jacobs. Jerry LeBeau. Morris Albright. Ingrid Holmes.
Sure.
Daryl Anderson. Melvin Gedwood.
If you would join me, and Dr. Gedwood, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Heavenly Father, we come before you the only way we know how, with bowed heads and humble hearts. We've got thanksgiving in our hearts, so Heavenly Father, thanking you for this day, thanking you for having us assembled here this evening to do the work of the EDC. We ask that you guide our thoughts, guide our decision-making process. We know that if our steps are ordered in your words, then we know, Heavenly Father, that they will be ordered and we will do things decent and in order. Amen.
Amen. Join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Board members, you received a copy of the regular meeting of July, the bylaws, policies, and procedures workshop, and the budget workshop. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
It's been moved and second to approve the above-mentioned minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. There being no speakers, presentations will move to communications. Mr. Stokes. Communications 3A. One item up. Oh, certainly.
Mr.
They here?
Stokes, they're not present yet, so if you want to go ahead and hold off on that one.
They here?
Couple of things before we get started. The audio system is new and improved, so you do not have to press buttons anymore. You just simply, when you're done, go ahead and lean it back. It's about a 2-second delay before the light will cut off. The only one we're concerned about is Director Albright, because he likes to get comfortable. And as soon as you lean back, the light will start to go off. So if you see me waving you on in, it's just for that. Other than that, the having to cut one off so that someone else can speak is gone. Madam Chair, just real quickly, Attorney David tells me that in terms of order, you do not necessarily have to do 2 and 3 under unfinished business in order. They just have to be done tonight at any point. Just
Oh, no,
so
I understand. I understand. I just couldn't move item number 4 up to unfinished business.
Oh, no, you're right. I just,
That
it
was
can
what I
fall
was
right
saying.
after.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
we could do a non-consent. Okay, got
Can
it.
we go ahead with
Yes, now let's go
communications?
back to communications. Thank you. Okay, in your packet, this one was brought to your attention last month. Greater Beaumont Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with the Greater Port Arthur Chamber of Commerce, will be holding a legislative, congressional legislative update as we get ready to go into legislative season next year. That'll be on Monday, August 19th. And we will begin polling the board and staff to see how many we have attending and whether that will warrant we doing a table or doing individual tickets. And that flyer should be in your packet near the beginning. In your packet, a letter that was addressed to yourselves and me from my counterpart with the Chamber, Mr. Joe Tant, alerting you all that they would be proceeding with their lease, but they had some other things that they wanted just you all to bring to you all's attention. I'm going to toss this over to Deputy Mueller because she's had communications on this.
Thank you. In your packet, you do have this letter. It is just a communication to you all, letting you all know that they are renewing their lease here on the third floor of 501 Proctor. They have stated their intention to lease additional space should it come available. They just would like the board to know that they are interested in different options, whether it's a build out of their current space, additional space if it becomes available here at 501, or whether it be at the press building. But they are renewing the lease, and they would like the option to be able to amend it if they're able to expand in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, thank you, Deputy Mueller. Next up in your packet is a announcement and save the date. Time flies. It's almost time to get ready for Golden Triangle Days in Austin for 2025. You have a set of information there in terms of when our delegation is scheduled to be in Austin. That's March 3rd and 4th of next year. We have budgeted to make sure that there's margin at the higher sponsorship. We'll decide, or you'll specifically decide later on as we get a little bit closer, what we want in terms of representation for the corporation. But like I say, I went ahead and just budgeted at the top end so that we would have maximum flexibility. And then lastly, Madam Chair, under communications, you have a letter from Attorney Zeck outlining their intention to increase their rates as of September 1st. A detailed breakdown of what the rates will be is attached to the email that was sent. Like I say, that is scheduled to go into effect on September 1st, 2024. And of course, a couple of months after that, they're scheduled to have their contract brought before you for renewal. And with that, Madam Chair, that takes care of communications, unless there's questions.
Any questions? With that, I'd like to move your report and move to unfinished business. We'll start with the review, discussion, and possible action regarding the approval of the proposal, terms, and conditions of an economic incentive infrastructure grant with Corporal Enterprises.
And of course, you don't need a motion on unfinished business. I am going to toss this over to Deputy Mueller, who will give you the background on this as well as introduce our guests.
Board members, this item came before you all in June, and it was tabled as you all requested more information on the new application process that is being put in place. My understanding is you all had a workshop and were given that information. I think it's on your agenda tonight as well. Being that the operational application process is unrelated to this project itself, this project fell under the previous application process. They've done their due diligence. Staff has done due diligence on this project, and we do recommend that it move forward. If possible, and at the board's pleasure. We did invite the Corporal Enterprises representatives to come before you all in case there were any questions on their project. I don't believe they're here this evening. I don't see them out in the audience, so they may be arriving a little late. But the recommendation is to the board that this project move forward.
Madam Chair, why is it y'all's recommendation to move forward with this?
This is an infrastructure grant, and it basically applied to the same procedures that we've done in the past with all infrastructure projects. Their project is in Port Arthur on 365. They plan to create 2 or more business enterprises on their piece of land there on 365, which the details are in your packet there. So After consulting with our consulting engineers, AWC, we've looked at the cost estimates that they've provided, as well as what AWC, our engineers, estimates to be the current cost estimates for the project. The numbers there that you have in your packet are based off of those.
Okay, but that being said, I think it's for 140,000.
Correct. $140,120.
There's no jobs, and it doesn't state what the second business is.
Correct. This project is not based on capital investment or job creation. It is solely infrastructure.
Okay, but why would we want to be doing just an infrastructure project that doesn't bring jobs?
We've had two different types of incentives that we've done in the past. One is based on capital investment and job creation, and that can go towards the different types of capital investment that the project is intending to do. The other type of incentives that we've done in the past, that the board has approved in the past, is the infrastructure-only projects. According to the economic development laws, we are able to incentivize just infrastructure, not capital investment, if a project brings new business enterprise to the city. We've always interpreted that in the past as 2 or more businesses on a property. So it does not have to be tied to job creation or capital investment.
Oh, I understand that. Now, the fact that they haven't declared the second business, I mean, that's neither here or there at the moment. But Highway 365 is high-priced property. So if you can afford to play there, you really don't need an incentive. Now, if you want to go back past, like, let's say 32nd Street, back down to Lakeshore, to where that is a business-starved to a point, depending on areas, and food landlocked area, then yeah, I can see doing that.
I think that's a matter of how you all want to incentivize. You're correct. If you want to start doing incentives based on areas in need, then you can certainly do that. As far as there's always been that question on whether incentives should go to company, whether they can make the project or not. A lot of times we base our incentives on the fact that they can go across the street. So it's not so much that they may or may not have the funding to do it with or without the EDC's help. A lot of times we attract large industrial businesses that can in fact probably put the funds into it in order to attract them rather than the next state or the next city.
All right, let's go down that path. Since this is retail, it's not an industry, it's not manufacturing. What's their gross revenue projection per year?
That I couldn't tell you. We do not get into those.
Well, without
because we
getting
don't
into
look at capital
that, you're
investment.
chasing sales tax at that moment. So if you brought up a Lowe's, then I would be like, well, okay, let's talk. If you bring up a Target, okay, let's talk. But on a $500,000 a year business, you're talking $10,000, $12,000 a year in sales tax, and you're giving them 140 and no jobs. I mean, that's just my opinion. I'll leave it there.
They are very good points, Director Albright, and we do have ZAC tax that can look at those types of things. Maybe, I don't know if it does projections or not, but if that's something that the board would like to put into their policies whenever it comes to looking at these types of incentives, we can do that in the future.
About the second business, I didn't quite understand that one.
So we don't require them to give us the names of the businesses, as most of the times they're working on solidifying their leases with them. This is based on reimbursement. So if they don't produce a second business, we don't pay out.
How long do you give them on that? When you give them on that?
I believe it's 18 months. I don't have the contract in front of me, but I believe it's 18 months.
On the floor to remove this item. May I have a second? Moved and second to remove the item or disapprove the item for consideration. All those in favor of disapproval of the item, please signify by saying aye. All those who agree with approving the item, please respond. There being no other response, the item fails for. I am going to come back to the two unfinished business items because we do have guests in the room who will be making a comment. Under non-consent agenda items, we'll be moving number 4 to the floor, and that item reads review, discussion, and possible action regarding the approval of a proposed terms and conditions of an economic incentive and entering into a performance agreement with Texas Desserts doing business as Rayo's Bakery. I'll give everybody an opportunity to look for any forms that they need to since I moved the item, and I'll ask Mr. Stokes. Discuss the item, and then
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will also allow everyone a second to kind of move everything around because we did move this up. Sometimes time flies and sometimes time drags on. When I first put this on my monthly report in May of 23, neither myself nor the Tortoresi's could have guessed that it would be August of 24 before we had this in front of you, but that's sometimes how things go when you're both trying to run the company as well as take time to apply for taking care of the future. You have a background memorandum from me as well as the overall proposed package.
it's behind your policies and procedures in your documents. In the back, right behind those two documents, right there. All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stokes.
Certainly. Basically, in a nutshell, Rayo's Bakery, which is there's location that's the subject of this particular project, is presently in Nederland. They have their eyes on a site that is on the ring of Central Mall, which would bring them into Port Arthur. They are looking not only to expand their footprint and take on additional employees, but their current site is very limited as it relates to drive-through capability. As someone that has dinged my vehicle a few times, I can speak firsthand that it's just not particularly wide enough for the type of volume and traffic that they would expect to do in their type of business. So by moving across the street, not only do they will have opportunity to expand that footprint, but most relevant to us is that, in case you did not know, they also are in the business of manufacturing and distribution. There are very few major stores that you can go into in our region and pretty much in all of Texas where you do not now find their branded products on the shelf. So obviously most folks are used to going to their bakery, but over the last couple of years they've started to bring the bakery to the customer by providing, having shelf space in stores like H-E-B and Kroger. So directors, what we are looking at, and which is outlined in the overall proposal, you have background on the specific project, which I just covered. On the third page of the overall listing, you have what the terms and conditions are for themselves. maintaining the number of employees that are currently available to them at 120. The capital expenditure that they plan on doing is sitting at $2 million. We will be asking them to add an additional 15 full-time employees as a part of this overall package, with an annual salary of just shy of $23,000 in the first year. Economy allowing increasing that over the life of the project, and then maintaining those 15 new employees over the 3-year milestone approach of the performance agreement. You see what commitment that we would be making for the percentage of the $2 million capital expenditure. The first milestone is at $34,200 after we see proof of the employee obligation by way of payroll, and that is repeated for years 2 and 3. On your next page, you have our proposed internal timeline in terms of the overall project. I'm going to invite, I want to say Mr. Tortorese, but both are Mr. Tortorese. In case you have any questions, Mr. Jake and son Josh, they are 2/3 of the group that we've been working with. Brother Jude is not here tonight, but rather than me speaking of their project, I thought I would turn the floor over to you all.
Thank you.
See if this, okay. Thank you so much for hearing the proposal and having us in your board meeting tonight. We brought a little rendering. We've been working on this project with Mr. Stokes for over a year, but as Rayos, we've been working on this project for a long time. We see the value in Port Arthur with all of the industrial opportunities for a business that does caterings, for a business that does manufacturing. And I think for the manufacturing, it might be a question, well, what manufacturing does Rayos Bakery do? During Mardi Gras, if you go anywhere in Southeast Texas or Houston and you don't see a Rayos King Cake, I'd be surprised. That certainly is a product that we've been able to distribute across the United States through shipping, but also we deliver to certain parts of Galveston, Port Bolivar, Houston. We have corporate accounts that have us bring in king cakes, and that's just a certain time of year, but we also do wholesale agreements with restaurants, be it gelato, where we make gelato in our location from scratch and we deliver it to restaurants. We do caterings for large events all over the area, whether it be an industrial company wanting us to come out or just a large event. And so we see the value in Port Arthur. The Nederland location has really been successful for us. We've been there since 2007, I believe we opened. All right. We've been there since 2007, and that location has been successful for us, but we feel like we could do much better. And so we've been trying to get into the Port Arthur market for, I bet, ever since we moved into the Nederland market, because after about a year or two, we realized the potential. And the potential in this area for Rayos, we think, is through the roof. And if you have any questions or if there's anything you want to add.
I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to become a partner with us. Your gain, Port Arthur's gain, is going to be the number of employees, my sales tax, and my property tax, and maybe some other taxes. But we're comfortable with it because we have a very good store in Beaumont, the Dowling Road store. Now, I'm a betting man, and I don't bet, but I take gambles. This store is going to overpass, we're going to conquer that store. This will be our best store out of 5. We have ambitions to go some other places, but we felt like with the growth we've had in Nederland, we're locked in. Our gross sales cannot go much more because of where we're at. You can't see us. You hadn't been able to see us since 2007. And our drive-through, I think I'd rather have stitches in my eyeballs than go through our drive-through. So with this, you'll see the style store we're trying to build. We want something nice. This is a prototype of what we would like to build in the future. If we go to build another. This is probably partnership. Have a question?
Any questions?
I have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you. I'm a big fan of Rayo's, but I have some questions just about the terms and conditions as listed here. The first being local employees, does that literally mean local or does it mean Port Arthur?
Where would you like?
Arthur.
Or from we're going to do.
Something I want to say to that is we have already been in touch with the Port Arthur School District about having programs with the high schools. And I know we've had students come through the Nederland location that went through Port Arthur high schools. So there's certainly, we get applicants from Port Arthur and Nederland. It's really, really close. So I don't have a number, but Port Arthur employees would certainly be a priority for us, though.
Absolutely. And we've discussed that in the very beginning.
And then the second question, thank you for that answer. The second question would be, so the intent is to add 15 new full-time employees. Is that amount, that 22.8, that average, is that the average annual salary of employees across all of your locations?
No, that's not the average. That number is a number that we came up with for service individuals. A lot of times in our locations, our kitchen employees are long-term employees and they're there forever. And as long as we're open, which, that number though is very low. Our managers make double that. Our full-time decorators make double of that. So I think that number is the number we came up with customer service specific employees.
And those are customer service specific employees working full-time?
That would be true, yes. 22,000 sounds about right to me for full-time customer service employees.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes. I'm assuming this is from y'all, or it's from somebody. Sales tax is a $555,324. Is that y'all's number?
I don't have that packet. I'd have to look. I'd have to.
You've
of the
got
document.
600 and something on one page, you got 555 on another.
And Josh, just to refresh memory, that's when we were sitting down with you doing the projected economic impact. So we went conservative. Rather than the 600,000 number, we went with the 5.
That's the sales tax for that particular, estimated sales tax for that particular store? You plan on making about $45 million a year in that location? Well, I didn't think so. That's why I bring it up.
We're here, probably look at, we're our low number's 2 million, second year 2.5, and I think, that's being pretty. Allen Road is probably sitting at about 2.5.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. All right,
I
so
can't go do more than 2.5, I need to go home.
we're talking about $45,000 a year in sales tax.
Yeah, and that's a retail number. That's retail sales.
Right, that's your retail sales growth.
And we do sales outside of retail, the manufacturing part of it, annually, that's.
Yes, that should be a little bit more than that, but if you want to just.
Right, but I mean, if you're calling it tree manufacturing, you're not taxing it in the city of Port Arthur, you're taxing it where you deliver it, if it's tree manufacturing.
Yeah.
So, you can't, I mean, I'll give you another $5,000. I mean,
I'm just saying we are.
Yeah.
gonna be, part of everything.
And we intend to do business with the industrial part of this area. I mean, when we first opened the Nederland location, we did very well delivering into Motiva and several other, I'll call them plants for lack of a better term. And we've lost that business, and this is a restart for us. I mean, we've got to get back into delivering daily to Motiva and those type. LNG, I think, was one of them we used to go to all the time. But so that the number of the $2 million is retail numbers. And
no, I figured it at 3, and I'll go 3.5. I'm fine with that.
okay,
But for the purpose of the discussion, we're talking about $512,500 total all in for us. That equals out over a 3-year period to $34,166 per employee. Okay? On basically $11 to $13 an hour job. Okay? And this is just my opinion. Let me tell you something. I love y'all's cakes, okay? I do. Everybody does. But that's a lot for that wage job, in my opinion. Now, I don't have any idea how the rest of the board feels, and I was hoping to make it up in sales tax, but you're not making it up in sales tax. And don't get me wrong, everybody loves rails. But that's too big of a spend for me. Thank you.
if I may say, the adding of the jobs, we currently employ 35 to 45 employees, depending on the time of year, in that Nederland location. And so we plan on adding 15 more jobs that we currently have in Nederland in that location across in Port Arthur. Okay.
I got the 15 employees, but the 15 also have to be Port Arthur.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure.
But it's still $34,000.
Sure. Yes, and we also, and I'm sure y'all know this, it's probably in the packet, we purchased the land, and that land there's been nothing there for 7 or 8 years since the bank was taken down. We love that property. We've looked at it for years, and we've invested, we've purchased the property, we're going to build from the ground up, and you're going to have what you can see here. We don't want to be the drive-through on 365. It's a $2.2 million project that we're in the building itself. And so I think I understand your concern about the wages and the employees and where they're coming from. And if Port Arthur is going to commit to us, we're going to commit to Port Arthur. That's for sure.
The questions.
I have one more question. Do you have, because I don't think I see it here, do you have maybe like an average revenue split between your retail and your manufacturing?
I don't, not all of our locations do manufacturing.
Those that do?
The location on, the original location on Calder Avenue in Beaumont and Calder and 10th, that would be the location that I could give you a revenue split for because it does the manufacturing. We want to build a location where we can focus more on that. And when we designed this, we're designing it now, that is the priority of our kitchen, because you kind of have to alter your kitchen to manufacture and do all these things. But the revenue split at Calder, I don't have an exact number, but I could come up with it.
I'm very interested in that number, and then just to kind of reflect and echo what Director Albright said, I think for me, my comfort levels with this, because again, I love Rails. I patronize all of your locations, quite frankly. However, you've come to the Port Arthur EDC because you want to do business with Port Arthur. So for us, priority is the hiring of Port Arthurans to fill those positions with livable wages. So we're talking full-time positions. The number as it stands is not great. 22.8 in 2024, given the economic landscape, inflation, et cetera. We want people to have livable wages if they're gonna be employed here in the city. I think those are my major two concerns overall. I don't know if that's even something that we can do, rework some of what we've seen, some of these pre-agreed upon terms and conditions here. But for me to be kind of bought in and on board, that's something I would like to see, that commitment.
Yeah, and that wage is typically for our customer service employees, their high school and their college, and it's not a typical, I say livable wage, they're going to school, but for our other positions, if I were to hire a manager that lives in Port Arthur, you know, they'll be making, like I said, over $40,000 a year. Our decorators, if they live in Port Arthur, and I didn't think that maybe we should see currently who's working there, how many are from Port Arthur. It didn't cross my mind until this conversation. But the decorators and the other positions, baker, decorator, managers, you know, we have all types of positions, and that number, I came up with that we would needed more staff up front, but we certainly would need more staff in the kitchen as well.
I would suggest maybe breaking that apart, right? Saying part-time versus full-time positions, and then giving that salary projection so it's not as skewed, because it seems like it's skewing lower, right? Based on service type positions, but I understand what you're saying. It's just hard to interpret it from what's written here.
Josh, I was make sure that we're all clear. Let's just go ahead and make it 15 Port Arthur. So we'll change that. It is full-time. That's what we would be agreeing to, 15 new full-time local employees. It sounds to me like the board would be a little bit more comfortable with targeting the higher end, as opposed, not that we do not want high school students, we fund that as well, but in terms of making sure the return on investment a little bit better matches the types of wages that we would expect to see, which you just said tends to come in the crafts as we go up, then perhaps we target the crafts positions as opposed to the entry level. But I just want to make it clear, you mentioned part-time, Secretary Jacobs, and we did not have them looking at part-time, just full-time. And I would prefer that we stick with full-time and perhaps go up the food chain, if you will.
What would be the proposed number of employees for this location?
So This location is going to be basically similar to our Houston location and our Dallender location, and we employ over 35, and certain times of the year, 45 employees. We are a little seasonal. Certain times of the year, summertime may not be as busy, but we do host a bakery camp here every summer, and I know that would be really well received, and we do hire high school and college employees for that as well, but 35 to 45.
One question.
Go ahead.
The 120 current employees, how many are those people, Port Arthurans?
I've just mentioned, I didn't think that I should research that, and I'm sorry about that, because now it seems very obvious I should have. I will absolutely find out tomorrow morning, because I want to know, and I know we employ plenty of people from Port Arthur in the Nederland location. I just don't know how many.
Question I have, I've noticed that again, the average salary is $22,800, and it applies to mostly kitchen help. $22,800.
Customer service, front of house, yeah, customer service.
And I see on the last page where you have the salaries average at $29,265 on the last page. So which is the job.
Oh, I see it.
salary, yeah.
That's going to be an average of every employee in the location, but like the management are going to make in the 40s, and our long-term employees, tenured employees, bakers, decorators are going to be making near that as well. Yeah, your kitchen staff, long-term tenured employees and managers are making around 35 to 40, but we employ more customer service than we do kitchen. So I might have a salaried baker and maybe an assistant baker, a gelato maker, but I need 3 or 4 employees to sell product, make drinks, and work drive-through. So it's almost like a 1.5 to 1 staff front of the house to kitchen, if that makes sense.
Other questions? This time, Mr. Stokes, I guess I'm wondering if this is something we need to look at reworking some of these numbers and bring this back to the board next meeting so that some of these questions can be asked before we have a vote on this, Mr. Stokes? Okay, is that agreeable with the board? Okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen, so much for your presentation. We really look forward to reworking this and working certainly with Rayo's. I think we've all said and re-emphasized that we are Rayo's fans, and we want this to be an awesome experience for all of us. And we really are excited that you're interested in Port Arthur. So if we can rework this and bring that information back to the board next month, I think we can begin the process.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all, and I appreciate your time as well. Was there something else you wanted to say, sir?
Are you sure you don't have any more questions? You want to come with all the answers?
No, that's a good point. I'll ask the board if you have additional questions.
There's something you're thinking but you hadn't wanted to ask.
Yeah.
You're not gonna hurt my feelings.
I think if there are any additional questions, if there are any additional questions, I ask the board to please send to Mr. Stokes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Okay, with that, we'll go back to unfinished business. We'll move to agenda item number 2, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the City of Port Arthur's reimbursement of expenses to the PAEDC for the lift station rehabilitation at Spur 93 Business Park. May I ask for a motion? Moved and second to action on the reimbursement of the expenses to the PAEDC. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
He was going to be,
Think be
Charlie
able
was
to.
going to be here. But a few months ago, I requested this same thing when you were sitting here, and you was directed to go to the city and negotiate our 300 and, or, I can pull it up, our money that we gave. And I talked to Charlie the other night. He was supposed to get back with me, and he didn't again. But he said, you should have never been directed that to go to the city, because that was not a legal matter of the boards. Did he talk to you about it? Last meeting, I brought this up again, and Mr. Stokes said that you, and not quoting, talked to him about it, and something about not negotiating or couldn't negotiate or whatever. Mr. Stokes might be able to enlighten us on that.
Mr. Stokes has some comments.
Yes, directors. I had planned on putting together a timeline for you of events. Ran out of time to do that, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. This is on me. I misinterpreted some feedback that I got from both attorneys and completely misunderstood the direction that I thought they were giving me legally. So let me just back up and explain that. When the board approved using our emergency procurement measures, which move faster than the city could otherwise do, when you approved that, we used the city to, we partnered with the city to facilitate getting the bids, eventually getting the design. We had paid for that. You had approved the design work back in October. Long story short, we proceeded. I then, on me, spoke with David, spoke with Attorney Zek, and what I completely misunderstood is that we could not now go back to the city having used our emergency procurement process and then go and get funding from them, which could be construed as, well, you then just basically went around their process, used yours to move things faster, but they're still at the end of the day paying. Now looking back, I know exactly where I misunderstood. It was in good faith to make sure that this organization did not violate anything and get in trouble, nor put the city in jeopardy. But the long and the short of it, and unless something has changed, those communications can be had. I commit to having them. If you'd like, although there is no action here, you can take an action and put it on the record to direct me. You don't have to. I've already reached out and started to schedule with the city manager and begin the conversations there. But that the conversations have not taken place to date is purely on me and my misunderstanding of the direction I thought I was getting legally.
Okay, bottom line is, we will get our $386,000 back.
I'd like to say the bottom line is that that's where we will start the conversation. It may be that this body may have to host them, have some conversations, but the bottom line is where I have been directed is to start the conversation. It is starting late because of my misunderstanding of instructions. Now that I've got that, to me, the bottom line is, let's start the conversations and take them from there. Director LeBeau, it's not that I'm not saying that that will not be what we seek, but the optimum word is negotiations. And so if you start out with the only acceptable negotiation or acceptable answer is $386,000, okay, that may be correct, fine, and that makes us whole, but that's not much of a negotiation, or they may not see it much as a negotiation. So let's, again, if you want to go on the record and direct me, you can. Not necessary. I'm going to start that conversation now that I'm on the right track of understanding what we can and cannot do.
It's fine, I understand all that. Negotiating shouldn't even be a word in there. We voted on something, you know, I mean, you said it. They don't act fast, we paid. It's their lift station, we need it back. I think we need a demand letter, and that's all it is to it. That's my opinion. Because this is taxpayers' money, and our money is not used to help the city. They have enough problems over there across the street. And we don't even know what they've done with the money besides, well, anyway.
Any other comments? I don't know that there's any action to be taken on this other than asking you to begin that conversation with the city.
Given staff direction.
Yes. So I don't know that there's anything else to vote on other than at the next meeting, having the results of that conversation for the board. Anything else, Mr. LeBeau, you want to add?
No, that's key. That's good. Have the results.
Yes.
And finalize this.
Having the results, yes. Number 3, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the status of the PAEDC CEO's relocation expenses.
Yes, I'd like to remove that, please.
Okay. Right, with that, we'll move on to non-consent agenda items. Number 1, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the approval of the PAEDC fiscal.
Can we go last on that one?
I'm sorry. You want to double back and let me go ahead and do my report?
Didn't. If it's important that you want to do
Just
that,
asking.
you may.
I can do it anytime. I just want to make sure that.
No, I wanted to go on to
That's fine.
non-consent. You leave your report for the end.
That's fine. Sorry.
And you're asking that we move
Move number 1 down to the end. so
don't
we can
have
get
a
through.
problem with that.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Go ahead, Kayla.
I don't know if I can make a opposing request. My opposing request is that, given discussion that we had during our workshop, that we, I guess we could speak on it, but I suggest we table it and not take any action on it tonight, because we were pending some additional information that I think needs to be properly reviewed, and that requires a little bit of time. I don't think we can make any diligent action on
What item was that, please?
the budget.
On the
One,
budget,
but you're just going to discuss. You're going to discuss this for
yeah,
a couple months.
we have that.
Yes, you do.
Oh.
Until the end of September.
When does this have to be to to the offices of the city?
Well, you've got till probably September 15th.
This is office.
Lynn Boswell, Director of Finance, City of Port Arthur. Tomorrow, I am required to set my dates for the hearing, and that also includes the EDCs as well. Though the date for the council meeting to adopt the EDC budget, our budget, taxes, et cetera, I believe is Monday and Tuesday, I want to say 23rd and 24th. However, I have publication requirements. I was just notified of that on Thursday or Friday. I'm sure it was last minute. And my publication requirements are the 3rd and the 10th of September to publish in the newspaper. And it's my understanding I do have to have at least that budget there. Obviously, it doesn't have to be finalized at that time, but I did want to let you know what those dates are because I did not have them the last time I was here.
So the last date that we, the Port Arthur EDC, can get our approved budget to you is?
I have a publication requirement, but it's my understanding that anything can happen during public hearing. And public hearings are, as I mentioned, the 23rd and 24th for adoption that day, should something
August?
change, of September.
So you need our budget.
The closest to publication date as possible, which is September 3rd or September 11th. I don't have my resolutions, but they should be posted now, and that's what we're going to be discussing tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. during our special meeting to adopt the 3 resolutions for when we're setting the meeting dates for the budget hearings and also for the taxes.
I guess the last day for us is
Like the end of this month, if that's at all possible.
end of the month. Okay.
And if, should you change your mind between August and our public hearing, and you come to the public hearing and say, I want it like this, at that time, right before we adopt the budget would be the best time to do it. I'm just giving you all kinds of ways if you decide you wanted to change something between now and September, that would be legally possible.
So the end of August is when this needs to be completed from our perspective. So August. September, the first meeting in September. So we have a month.
That would be Labor Day, I believe.
Oh, well, no, our meeting would be the second Monday.
May have to have a special meeting, Chair.
I'm sorry?
You may have to have a special meeting.
Oh, yes, definitely, definitely. I was just trying to get a date in mind that we have a month. September 9th is the second. Okay, September 9th.
That's when your meeting is already, your regular meeting is scheduled.
Right.
I have to go back onto my resolutions to see what I need to publish for the hearings on the budget.
And those hearings are, you said?
I believe it's the 23rd and 24th. Is that a Monday and Tuesday of September?
Okay, all right.
My publication dates, though, my required publication dates are the 3rd and the 10th.
You don't have to have, your budget has to be approved by the 1st of October, correct?
On the 24th is when mine has to be.
October.
Yes, and my draft has to be presented by the 3rd and the 10th for the taxes and the budget as well, the 3rd and 10th of September.
Not October. Just want to correct that. You would be already into the fiscal year, so she meant September.
Okay,
Yeah, not October.
okay, all right. 'Cause
We'll be changing fiscal year dates. And I just, Secretary Jacobs, just to address what you started off with, myself and Financial Officer Jaquette, we did come prepared to address the questions that came out of the workshop tonight, which is what we, committed to you to do. You had things you want us to go off and collect. We've done that. However, I think what I understood you to say is that then may generate additional questions, and therefore a second workshop may be necessary on our way to that special meeting. Is that a fair statement of what you all are thinking?
I think so, but I think we need to have the agenda item and go through it to see
Sure.
what is
It's-
the result of that.
yeah.
We'll move that to the last item, but that may be a consideration. So if you would, we'll go back to our non-consent agenda items. We'll move number 1 to number 11, 10, it would be number 10. And we'll go with the second agenda item, review, discussion, and possible action on the revised proposed bylaws and requesting city council's approval of same.
Make a motion.
It's been moved and second to approve the current proposed bylaws and requesting that we send them to city council for approval.
A couple of,
Discussion, go ahead. Mike?
After reviewing the bylaws, and I apologize for not looking at the old one, comparing the new one to the old one, due to so many situations I've had in my family. But I finally did that, and I noticed some items were missing from my old bylaws. One of them is, I see we have code of ethics, and it states, let me go to that page.
You referring to our old bylaws now, or our new ones?
I'm going to the new one, and I'm going back to what the old bylaws state.
All right, thank you.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
I'm trying to find it. But this code of ethics, is it in the policy and procedures, or is it? Yeah, this, and I forgot it at home, rushing, trying to get here. Code of ethics probably under policy and procedures. Okay. And
Pardon me, Beverly, sir?
I'm sorry. It is my understanding that Charlie or Mr. Zach, I should say, recommended that you all use the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics, and you'd apply that to yourself, and therefore you wouldn't need a second separate Code of Ethics of your own.
And I'm glad you brought that up, due to the fact, I did notice that it did say according to the Port Arthur's Code of Ethics, but because we don't have a copy of it, it's be a whole lot of convenience for the board members to go ahead and apply our Code of Ethics that we had for our last bylaws placed in these new bylaws. Our policy and procedure, it must be policy and procedures.
Make any changes you would like to the new bylaws, but you will then have to vote on those bylaws with.
We don't have a copy of the cities. I'm not saying, I did see where he said, refer to the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics.
Okay.
But to make it easier to me for the board members, if we can apply that to the ones we had for 2022 to these present bylaws, it'd be more convenient for, I would think, the board members.
May make any amendments or changes to its bylaws that it wishes. I can try to get a copy of the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics. I could probably get that to Mr. Stokes tomorrow if he doesn't have it already.
Yes, that was originally distributed late last year when Attorney Zach was putting these things together. And probably just an oversight in not including it with the red line and the cleaned item. So I've just made a note to send that out. I just want to make sure I understand. You just want a copy of the City of Port Arthur's current Code of Ethics, which the Attorney Zach has recommended just be incorporated.
And place it in the document.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm
No,
asking
that's
that the ones we have, that it was stated in for April the 2nd, 2022, be placed in these Code of Ethics in our 2024 bylaws. So in other words, we're not going to use what the City of Port Arthur Code of Ethics have. We're going to use what we had, and I'm just requesting the ones we already had for April 2022 to be placed in 2024's.
I can't advise.
A motion?
It's going to take a minute.
Okay.
Motion, I second it.
Another. Okay, it's moved and second to place the PAEDC Code of Ethics from our original document in our current document.
It was dated April the 2nd.
That was dated April the 2nd, 2022, to our current document to be adopted. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Can I add a?
Yes.
Per my recollection previously, we were in agreement that the City of Port Arthur Code of Ethics would be used and that it would also be attached, I guess, as an addendum to the agreed upon bylaws that we've adopted or are trying to adopt. And so in that is my justification for disagreeing with going yet again back to, what is it, August 2022's document. That seems to be, to me, against the original advisement of Attorney Zek. So,
Does anyone have a copy of, have any board members seen the City of Port Arthur Code of Ethics? Okay. Again, I would motion that we include the Code of Ethics that was dated April the 2nd, 2022 in the present bylaws for 2024.
Well, there has been two oppositions to doing that. We will go with it as it is written. For a tie, the motion has failed. Motion failed. It was 3-3.
Yes, that's a no.
Okay.
Joe,
Have one more.
Raymond, I
item.
will
Go ahead.
still distribute that document so that you all have it at your disposal. The current code of ethics was included, as Secretary Jacobs correctly articulated, as an addendum to the revised bylaws that the board passed on November 14th of 2023. I'd imagine that Attorney Zek has not continued to send that out, just assuming it was, a fait accompli. Having said that, it has been a long time, so I will distribute that tomorrow so that everyone just has it, especially the newer members of the board.
I think in any of these documents, if it implies that there is an attachment, the attachment should always be included, because I think it could read the same thing, but we just may not be aware of what that document says. So as it refers to it, it needs to attach to it.
One more item I found that was on the bylaws dated 2022 that is not on these present bylaws is nepotism. And I think also we should consider adding that back due to the transparency of the organization, that we should include. I don't know why it was removed, but nepotism was not placed in the new bylaws.
Just have a second on that.
Second it.
It's been moved and second to add nepotism as one of the articles of the bylaws that we are approving tonight. Yes, Attorney? It's from the 2022 document.
I can't.
Wouldn't like to put the board in the position of adopting a nepotism clause when we don't know what the nepotism clause says, or the board doesn't know what it says.
Madam Chair, may I make a?
Yes.
Again, I believe that, and of course, we will leave it to our legal counsel or attorneys to clarify this, but I do believe that that was a portion of the Code of Ethics to which we're referring to.
City of Port Arthur's
The
Code
City
of
of Port Arthur's, the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics, I believe, holds a nepotism clause, and I believe that that was a substantiation and rationale for removing it from the bylaws, the revised bylaws.
I was not at the workshop, as you all know, but that comports with my discussion with Mr. Zach, that the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics contains its nepotism clause. Since there was a nepotism clause in that which was adopted, you could remove it as a separate portion of bylaws. I'm sorry.
What you're saying is these two items, we follow the city's guidelines
Yes, sir. It is my
on
understanding.
all things like that, okay.
It is my understanding that from discussing with Mr. Zach, that at the workshop, it was proposed, and I accepted that this board would adopt the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics as its own Code of Ethics, and that within that Code of Ethics is the nepotism language that's similar to what used to be in a separate category of your bylaws. So by adopting the Code of Ethics, which has the nepotism language, you then remove the nepotism language from bylaws.
And I don't have no problem with the board agreeing to that, but I'm very disappointed that we did not receive a copy of the city's Code of Ethics that included this, so we can have it in our possession. So it's very hard. I understand the board would like to approve this, but it's very hard to approve something that you don't have in your present, you can't read, because we don't know exactly what is on those codes of ethics, and nobody can tell me. But yet they're going along with it. So, but again, I go majority to the board, what they have decided regarding the city's policy.
Director Raymond, what page are you on? There, I see you have it as far as the nepotism. I want to make sure that I'm going to the exact page that you are referencing. Time.
For the sake of time, it is my thought that we found it. Okay.
Director Raymond, assuming that you are referencing Article 12.09, which happens to be on page 18 of the currently in force bylaws, no director or officer shall appoint or vote for or confirm the appointment to any office, position, clerkship, employment, or duty of any person related within the second degree by affinity, marriage relationship, or within the third degree of consanguinity. Ooh, thank you. Blood relationship to the director or officer so appointing, voting, or confirming to any other director or officer. The provision shall not prevent the appointment, voting for, or confirmation of any person who shall have been continuously employed in any such office, position, clerkship, employment, or duty at least 30 days prior to the appointment of the director or officer so appointing or voting. And my understanding is that that was only extracted in the revision because it replicated what was in the Code of Ethics. So for what it's worth, Director Raymond, I need to get that to you all in the morning. And if you elect to table this, that's up to you all. But as Secretary Jacobs pointed out, and I'm not trying to be redundant, but just trying to make sure that, you know, things are stayed on course, there was some measure of agreement on things last November. Now, I know that two of you were not involved in that. I get it, and I certainly don't have anything to do with it. I serve at your pleasure. But the bottom line is, of those then sitting directors, the bylaws were passed unanimously and then sent to city council. So at that time, whatever Attorney Zeck's recommendations, thinking, logic, so forth and so on, the then constituted board agreed with that and proceeded with approving the bylaws. Now, some modifications have been made this past last Monday per your workshop, and it sounds, at least for you, Director Raymond, that you'd like a couple of other items evaluated. And again, that is up to the board, but for my 2 cents worth, and Dave, I'm gonna get myself in trouble with this, where I started to not know the law, just remember that you did pass a set of bylaws that happened to have that code of ethics, happened to then take that nepotism aspect because it would have been redundant. That doesn't mean that you can't add it back. It's your bylaws at the end of the day.
Let me ask this. When this went to city council, were they not approved at city council?
My recollection is that this body requested that the city council not take them up.
This body directed me to notify the city attorney that it did not wish any action to be taken by the city of Port Arthur on the then proposed amendments to the bylaws via email next day. So understanding they haven't acted on it.
So again, I'm fine, whatever majority of the board wants. It would be a whole lot easier again if we just had a copy included in the new bylaws, but that's fine.
Understand.
Let's continue. Let's move forward.
Are we taking a vote on that or what?
Yes, we are. Oh,
Good.
is there not a motion on the table?
Thought there was a 3.
That was on the original discussion.
Okay,
This
yeah.
is on the nepotism component.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
There's a motion on the table.
Like a roll call vote too.
Before we vote, I have one comment. I think that what we're seeing tonight is not having the inclusion of every component to the documents that we need to work from. And in the future, I think we need to have everything that we refer to that is discussed in the document, in the body of the document, so that everybody can have a viewpoint of what they're working with. For those who weren't on the board then, I think we just need to make sure that happens. So let's go on with the vote.
Madam President,
Yes,
before you
sir.
move forward, we, a 3-3, killed the other, dealing with the bylaws. And we also are saying that the nepotism rule is a part of the city's bylaws, right?
City's code.
That's what we're.
I'm sorry, city's code of ethics.
Right.
Is that not right?
That's the question for me, Dr.
That's the
Wood.
question for me as well.
That's the question for me. I don't know that's why I'm saying we have to have documents in front of us.
We do know in the code of ethics for the city of Port Arthur, there is a nepotism rule, because there's nepotism rule in almost every code of ethics of any organization.
Madam President, if we could take a brief recess, I believe Mr. Shovsky could probably go print the code of ethics off.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Thank you. Thank you. An agenda item, we have guests who have been waiting for us, and we're going to move to their agenda item, and that is agenda item number 6, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the submission of a request for use of promotional funds application for Legacy Community Development Corporation for support of their home ownership celebration event. Crystal, if you would cover that item, please.
Ma'am, I believe you have before you the request from Legacy, and we do have representatives here from Legacy tonight. If they'd like to step up and give a little overview over what the request is and what their event that they're requesting the funds for.
Hello, good evening, Board.
Evening.
My name is Brittany Collins, and I'm the Deputy Director at Legacy CDC. And we worked in partnership with Port Arthur EDC in the past to provide down payment assistance for some of our homeowners. And annually, we do a homeownership appreciation event, usually hosted in June. But due to inclement weather, we did have to push the event back. So we are kindly requesting $1,500 from the EDC to support the movie aspect, which will provide concessions for the children who will be watching the movie Home at our home buyer event.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? Second. It's been moved and second. Is there a question? Question?
Yes, this is gonna be a, what policy on?
Enough, but up to 10% of your budget is discretionary promotional funds. What promotion is up to the board. Within reason. So, well, I understand there is no legal definition in this context for promotion. So it's whatever the board reasonably would decide a promotional event would.
It's been moved and second to approve allocating $1,500 to Legacy CDC for their homeownership celebration program. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you so much for your patience.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
On. We've got to print off what the city ordinance is on nepotism, or else none of this. To see what it says, see if we want to follow, to see if we need to include it. So,
Mr. Stokes is
well, I think he's
getting us a copy now.
the 2022, but we got to have the
Oh, a
ordinance.
copy of the city's.
Oh, the city
So he was
ordinance.
getting a copy of the current city.
Okay.
City's code of
Code of ethics.
ethics.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Review, discussion, and possible action of the revised Board of Directors Policies and Procedures Manual.
Make a motion.
It's been moved and second to approve the board's policies and procedures manual and ask that they be sent to City Council for approval. Question?
I have actually two items in regards to the policies and procedures. One of them is a question that I posed last week during the workshop, and unfortunately, I don't think it was adequately answered. And so I'd like to pose the question again to the board to see if maybe a better explanation can be provided. So one, and this is probably the most time-consuming of the two, for the travel clause, and I think that's on page 8, the language was updated to be a bit more pointed in saying that, I'll actually read it. PAEDC related travel by either directors or chief executive officer must be approved by the board of directors prior to commencement of the travel. Upon conclusion of all travel, financial reports detailing the expenses incurred must be submitted to the board of directors at its next regular meeting and voted on. So that first sentence, I just want to clarify. We're saying that any and all travel that the CEO embarks upon has to be approved in advance. Is my interpretation of that correct? Yes. Okay, well, given that language, I don't agree, because reflecting on my own experience in corporate America, extensive traveling as a business consultant, someone who has had to deliver on behalf of an organization. Sometimes there are spur of the moment needs and requirements. I understand that you will have sets of travel that are absolutely required as a part of your role, but there's also some unplanned and ad hoc travel that may be necessary for the mission of the organization to be carried out. And I feel that waiting on a regular meeting that takes place once a month is quite a bit of a time outlay for something that, you know, he may find out, and I'm not sure Mr. Stokes can't speak to this specifically, but, you know, if he's apprised of a situation maybe that he can take advantage of, an opportunity that can be taken advantage of maybe only a week in advance, he may miss out on an opportunity to be performing his task at the best of his ability on behalf of this body and this organization. So for that reason, I think it creates a bottleneck and an inefficiency, and I don't agree with the language as it is written currently in the policy.
Go ahead.
Could make a comment. I think we discussed this. Any out of the ordinary comes up, that wouldn't even be a problem. The board is over with.
DuPont calls up.
Right, so given this change, right, if we reflect on the previous language, which was, right, but he's not this is the Port Arthur Economic Development.
Doesn't have to do emergency travel?
I would believe so.
I beg to disagree.
So what is the protocol then? But that's why I posed the first question, which was, is our interpretation of this that any and all travel that he embarks upon has to be approved by this board? It was a resounding yes. So then when I gave this situation, now it's not a yes. So that's why I wanted to lay that foundation before I even asked additional questions, because if that's our interpretation, this does not read as such. It doesn't leave any space for those types of emergencies or those types of ad hoc, kind of out of the ordinary examples.
And again, Charlie didn't do a very good job evidently of bringing stuff back to us, because we did discuss this. And if, like he said, if it's needing to jump on a plane, just shoot an email to us. That's not even a question if I can go. You have to go.
And I think one of the things that we have not discussed, the city of Port Arthur, if we're going to use them as the reference, the city of Port Arthur has a travel policy. And everyone who is employed uses their travel policy. Mr. Stokes would not be outside of it. We have a travel policy, and so I think that may be the addition that we may need, and we'll clarify what are the concerns that as a board we would have, that someone would, and this is not at all implying that you would do this, Mr. Stokes, but that someone would go out and just travel and spend all this money. There are policies and there are situations that guide those kinds of things. And Ms. Boswell, I understand you had a comment? Ms. Boswell, there she is.
Linda Boswell, Director of Finance, City of Port Arthur, and I have to administer the policy, so I wanted to let you know what the clarification is. For someone like Mr. Stokes, he would not need, unless it is in your rules, approval from our side. Let me tell you what would need approval from our side. If there is anyone other than Mr. Stokes, a deputy, or any of the staff, I would need a request or an approved request from him that allows anyone else and his staff to travel, I would have to have that request. I do not need to actually have anything else signed by Mr. Stokes. He would just put the request and he would just go ahead and sign that. Would not necessarily come from the city manager. The way that we address our board members or our council members is usually they travel and it's as a body, they either say yay or nay to the travel itself. So the only thing I required in order to provide reimbursement to any of that is if anyone other than Mr. Stokes, who is employed, wants to do travel, I have to have the travel request signed by Mr. Stokes for that person. Then I can do that, and then after that, I can do a reimbursement. So it's kind of, we have to do a two-step process. So I wanted to allow you clarification.
Let me ask this question. So how then does the city manager get approval to travel? He just travels?
As far as I know, I don't approve those. He
Oh, you wouldn't
does
approve
just
it,
travels.
But somebody signs, nobody signs off on anything
He
that
is
he
the city
does.
manager.
Oh, I've
Yes.
worked in government 31
Yes.
years. I know he is, but somebody
No.
has to, at some point, approve something. People are not autonomous, are they?
He does not need to have an approval for his. It's in his budget, and that's as far as it goes. All I need is the proper paperwork for the reimbursement, the proof that he went, the times
He
and
follows the
everything.
city policy, though.
That is correct, and it would
Okay,
be the
that's-
same
that's
for
what we're
Mr.
saying.
Stokes as well. He would not need city manager approval.
Oh, no, I didn't, the city manager doesn't approve anything that we do. Yeah, thank you. Yes,
Make a clarification here. The adoption of the Code of Ethics of the City of Port Arthur is contained in the Policies and Procedures Manual, not in the bylaws.
okay.
Did mention that it was the bylaws, all policy procedures.
I-
I wasn't sure.
Yes, ma'am.
But I didn't know where it was placed.
Yes, ma'am.
It was regarding the city's policy.
Yes, ma'am. And I
So
just
thank you
wanted
for
to-
clarifying anyway.
Wanted to clarify which of the two documents that was in.
Not sure that,
That changed?
no,
question.
I'm not sure that it answered my, or it fully addressed my concern. I guess almost seems as though, once again, if that is what we're going to reference, and if that's what we're going to use, then we would need to see it to make a proper judgment. Like the city of Port Arthur, if that is what Mr. Stokes or any CEO of this organization is held to, we will need to see that to make a proper,
Think we was going, in the meeting, we discussed, and what you have is what we decided on. Not that, we wasn't even talking about following anything. We make our own rules here.
right. And so with that being said, I'll pose my initial question once more, which is, if we are not expecting Mr. Stokes to seek our approval for all of his travel, then the current policies and procedures as written do not read that way. They read in a way that begs the interpretation that any and all travel that he embarks upon must be approved by this body.
And like I said, Charlie didn't do a very good job because we discussed it and thoroughly on that, and I thought he would have brought that back and said, except for this or except for that, I don't know.
Right.
And we can change it.
The exceptions were removed. There were exceptions in the original policies and procedures that were redlined, and they were removed to have this simpler, more pointed language, so.
A red line.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that was removed. So the current copy is as I read a moment ago, which doesn't include any exceptional language.
Under the current language, policies and procedures does not have any exception to pre-approval.
That's correct, but we discussed it in our workshop.
So understanding, sir, that there should be some additional language. I can reach out to Mr. Zek.
Fine.
And sorry about that. Like I said, I was not at the workshop.
I know, but like I said, if we put provisions in there, then we go with it.
Okay, I will check with Charlie.
And then if I may, my second concern, and thank you, Mr. Attorney, you pointed out something that I also saw, which is the code of ethics piece. But my second concern is and I may be out of place here, is the agenda information in the policies and procedures? It's in the bylaws, okay, well then, if and when we return to that, I'll bring up that other question. I'm
All right, there's also something wrong under contracts. So I'm moving to table. So would,
You have a motion, go ahead.
Mr. Albright, can you tell me what the problem is, and that way I can identify for Charlie?
all right, under contracts, tell me whenever you get there. All right, the Board of Directors of Port Arthur City Council shall approve all contracts, period. Well, all contracts except for budgeted and routine expenditures, period. Contracts exceeding $10,000 must go to the Port Arthur City Council.
Should be there. I will.
There was a motion and a second on the floor to approve, so we need to go back. The motion, amend the motion. So may I have an amendment?
Move to amend the motion? Is that what I should be saying? I move to amend the motion on the floor. To table it?
I will not answer.
Right, I was going to suggest, that we table the conversation in lieu of a special meeting to finalize the discussion on the revised bylaws and policies and procedures. I'm sorry, policies and procedures.
Well, are you amenable to doing it whenever we do a special meeting on the budget? All right, I'll second that.
It's been moved and second to table the vote on the policies and procedures manual to the meeting regarding the budget. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Policies and procedures. I'm sorry. Please correct my motion. That should refer to policies and procedures and not budget. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, before you is the Code of Ethics for the City of Port Arthur.
Does Mr. Attorney go with this?
Pardon?
Go with this?
We do not, I don't understand your question, sir, and deal with it.
Finding the two.
And finding the nepotism?
Is it nepotism? And there was one other thing that
Code of ethics.
Ms. Raymond had, question she had while we're here.
I think the entire thing.
the entire document to be included, that's right, the entire document to be included as an addendum in the Code of Ethics for the PAEDC bylaws.
No, policies and procedures is where it's adopted.
Policies and procedures, so we could go back to bylaw, we'll go back, we can, bylaws then are okay, no? But this is not where it is, it's not in bylaws, it's in policies and procedures, so we need to go back to the bylaws. Because I don't think there was a question about the bylaws.
Make a
then.
motion to reconsider the bylaws.
I have one, before we make a motion, I have one question regarding the bylaws. And I hope that area,
Let's second the motion and get it on the floor.
I second the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
72 hours before we receive information.
It's 72 hours by law that we have to receive that. But we talked about there being some other exceptions to us getting information. Is that included in here? Talked about it the days or
We were fine with 10 days.
right. 72 hours prior to the meeting we have to. Is that correct, attorney? Let me not interpret that.
Business days.
Sev-
Put in there business days.
It's not business days, though. It's 72 hours prior to the meeting that you receive the meeting.
Ma'am, 72 hours prior to the start time of the meeting, the agenda must.
What I'm saying, we went from 5 days to 10 business days.
To receive information
No,
from us,
to-
for the board.
To present stuff on the agenda.
Place items on the agenda.
No.
So I say the
okay.
same thing. We going from 72 hours to 72 business hours, which is 5 days instead of 4.
Yeah, the 72-hour posting requirement is in the Texas Open Meetings Act.
It's posting, we're not speaking of posting.
Okay, I misunderstood.
No,
Misunderstood too.
all meeting materials should be available to board members at least 72 hours prior to any meeting except the materials related to agenda items requested by board members, not delivered to the assistant secretary within 10 business days. So I was saying it should be 72 business hours that we receive the information regarding the agenda items.
If that's what the board wishes, I mean, it's your own rules there, I mean. But you have to post your
To
agenda
post, yeah.
72 hours.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the agenda has to be posted 72 hours before the
I
meeting.
understand. Apples and oranges.
Yeah. You're asking for an extension on that so that he would have, yeah, because. Go ahead, no.
I believe what she's asking. The information be available to board members, 72, and that's totally separate from the posting of the agenda requirement. So it's apples and oranges, so.
72 business days. So
72 hours.
hours. Oh, hours.
Still, as long as it's delivered on a Friday.
No, that's not this. That'd be Wednesday. Business day would be Wednesday. We would get the information on Wednesday. It's required to be posted on Friday, but we would get it on Wednesday. That was the intent of the discussion at the workshop.
Exclude the weekend.
Anything
To
after,
exclude the weekend. Yeah, that's it.
anything after that would just go to the next month.
All right. Yeah, but hold on. All right. I'm going to do a supplemental motion. All meeting materials shall be available to board members at least 3 business days prior to any meeting, except for the material related to agenda, blah, 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 blah. That would be Wednesday before
Be
the meeting.
Wednesday. Yes.
I'm not sure if this should be submitted as a supplemental motion but it's in addition to the requirement on how items are submitted for the agenda.
Can we deal with,
Separately.
yeah,
Yeah,
can
that's
we
fine.
deal with this item? Okay, so we want to amend the current writing on the bylaws
Yes.
to say,
All meeting materials shall be available.
Can
I
you-
have I'm sorry, Mr. Attorney, go ahead.
Clarification, can you tell me what page you're on so I can? Page 4? Sir. Yes, sir, okay. Thank you, sir.
Goes between hours, so we want consistent language.
Found the spot, yes, sir, I found the spot. Yeah. Sir. Okay, and then the rest of it is, so we're changing 72 hours to 3 business days? Yes. All right.
What's the motion? Did I get a second on that motion?
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and second to amend the bylaws that were provided to us tonight to read 3 business days. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
And I make a
Now,
supplemental
a
motion.
supplemental motion
A
to
supplemental
that.
motion to amend the language. So it starts on page 3 and it carries into page 4. The language which reads, any member of the board may have an item placed on the regular agenda by delivering the same in writing to the secretary of the corporation no later than 5 days, 5 business days prior to the date of the board meeting. I'd like to have a sentence added to that, which would say, have an agenda item and all supplemental documentation or information. And I guess the substantiation for that is so that we, the other members of the board, can follow along and understand the item that's being placed on the agenda at the time of the meeting. And so that we're not seeing that information or hearing that information for the first time at the time of the meeting.
Well,
I'm sorry. You want the supporting information submitted with the agenda item?
At the same time, at the
The
exact
same
same
time.
time. So when,
It's
so when
fine.
you're submitting, say for instance, if I can't send an email to myself. If you want to, yeah, if you want to submit something, you're submitting it 10 days, but not just the agenda item. If you have supporting documentation that goes along with that, that should also be submitted at that time as well. Instead of, it's almost like a rule of court where you can't submit evidence, if you will, after the fact. That should be sent along so that just like any other agenda item where we have supporting documentation, supporting information, it would be the same, that would apply.
All right, hold on just a
I
second.
understand that, but, okay. And most of my stuff, when I put it on there, I won't have documentation. It's like talking to the attorney today about a lift station. You know, that's all in here. I don't have that.
Can we clarify exactly
You understand?
what the
Because everything
proposed
I put
amendment
in
is?
there. No. So,
All right. I just want to follow on with something that you said. I mean, it's fine with what you said. So, under the new bylaws, instead of bogging you down with everything, like we discussed, the CEO is going to designate somebody once we approve this.
It's already done. It's already
Is it-
function of the board. Well, assistant sec, not by title, but by role, responsibility, that's already
Yes.
taken place, right?
By signing a legal document. Strictly everything that was shoved underneath you, you'll get copied on it, but we send it to whoever's designated. Then that person, if they're supporting documents or whatever else, instead of everything falling on you, she floods the board with it. Okay, he or she floods the board with it. All right?
Right, so what I'm saying is, for instance.
I'm fine with the supporting documentation, but instead of everybody having to sit there and submit to everybody, they can just submit to
No,
the
yeah,
designated
I
person.
agree
Yeah,
1,000%. When they're submitting their agenda item to the support staff who's performing the board secretarial duty, they should submit, if there is additional supporting documentation or visual aid or whatever it may be, that they will be using and referring to during the meeting, that should be submitted at the time that the agenda item is submitted for disbursement amongst board members, so that we can come prepared to discuss with, the backing information.
And we can explain to, I don't know who it's going to be, but we can, documentation available or.
yeah.
The,
We're back over at page 4.
Bottom of 3, very top of 4.
All right, so. All right, if it's all right with you, we're going to go down to line 138. Within 10 business days of meeting, provide documentation or presentation, if needed, it shall be provided to the board well, no, you're still under the 10-day thing, so.
If you go to line 132, my proposal or suggestion was to add language at the end or within line like 134, 135. So currently it reads, any member of the board may have an item placed on the regular agenda by delivering the same in writing to the secretary of the corporation no later than 5. So maybe following that on line 135, any supporting documentation or any documentation which supports said agenda item should be submitted at the same time or something to that effect. Yes.
English major as
Please.
opposed to an attorney. I believe if you were to simply, on line 133, after the word writing, put a comma and then the subordinate clause and all supporting documents, comma, that would achieve.
Okay.
If you're an English major, you never get over that.
That's your motion?
Yes.
I second.
It's been moved and second to make the adjustment that was recommended by Director Jacobs. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
I make a motion to approve bylaws.
Moved and
Sorry, I'm so
Yes,
sorry,
Mr.
Madam Chair.
Stokes.
Please, so close, I apologize, but we just want to come back to the Code of Ethics, and just when you thought that,
the Code of Ethics is part of the policies and procedures.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Thank you. It's been moved and second to approve the bylaws and procedures and have them move on to City Council for approval. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Mr. City. Mr. I was about to say city manager. Mr. Stokes, if you would, please move forward. Go ahead with your comments
Yes, ma'am.
about.
Not trying to confuse things, but as we perused the Code of Ethics, two things, okay? And again, I'm not trying to complicate things. I'm throwing it out to the board so that you can help us and give us direction. Far be it from me to disagree with Attorney Zek, But what you all were instructed to do last fall was blanketly accept the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics. And originally it was intended to embed that in your bylaws, that eventually it got embedded into your policies and procedures. Okay? Not being an attorney and having to write sign the invoices for one, I wasn't going to go beyond. He and I have this thing in front of us. This dog doesn't hunt in any way, shape, or form. And it doesn't apply. It's going to have to, I'm just saying, Director Alward, you're looking at me like I got antlers. It needs cleaning up. You just can't blanketly say, we're going to accept the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics. Too much of this doesn't apply to this corporation, and it's going to get us in trouble. And I apologize that I did not see this last November.
The comment, I couldn't help but notice that there is apparently some missing information. If you look at page 7, number 3, which would be, we're on the City
Code of Ethics.
Port Arthur's Code of Ethics. Page number 7, if you look at paragraph 3, which would be a nepotism provision, appointment of relatives, a city official shall not nominate, appoint, or vote to nominate or appoint any relative as set forth in blank. It's an.
So for my 2 cents worth, directors, I think you need to direct legal with some assistance from the CEO to get the code of ethics relevant to this corporation. You're not the city council. I'm not the city manager. There's too much of that because it's theirs. I guess in a nutshell, I'm saying that if in fact there's going to be a code of ethics, this is a good foundation. Now we just need to make it ours. It's not representative of you.
Mr. Stokes, the language that we use for the bylaws dated for April 2022, what was the problem with those codes of ethics? Because it did apply to the directors.
I don't have that in front of me, but I'm sure we have it, and I will bring that to Mr. Stokes' attention. It's the April 2nd of 2022.
Is when the current bylaws were.
Right. In those, as I just make sure I understand, and in those there is a code of ethics that was written for this board, prepared for this board. All right. Mr. Stokes.
And if I understand your question, Director Raymond, I'm going to say it plain if we're on the street, point blank, what was wrong with those that led to a desire to do something else, regardless of what that something else was? I'm too tired for highfalutin language. I'm going to say it plain. Is that a correct? Okay, got it.
Attorney, you just said that you would research it out and bring it back to Mr. Stokes?
What I will do is find a copy of that language and make sure Mr. Stokes has it.
Should the board?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yes, sir. I mean, right, and as, no, I'm sorry, I see your point, member, or I guess director. Yes, I will convey your concerns to Mr. Stokes and your instructions that they are, he or whoever he appoints under that is to look at that language and to make it applicable and current and to present it to the board. Am I understanding what you're wanting, Mr. LeBeau? Yes. Okay.
For my 2 cents worth, I think there is 2 steps. One, let's answer the question as to what was wrong with the previous incarnation. And then whatever that answer is, that leads into, in my opinion, please, directors if I'm wrong, then that leads into what needs to be extracted from this, if anything.
This is going to be an interesting question. But your first motion was to say that that we should not put the code of ethics in, what was your first motion about the? Mike.
To these bylaws that we're working on now. Amen.
Okay. Right.
But it's the nepotism, because it wasn't included. I mean, yeah. Policy and procedures. I don't know where it's supposed to go. Policy, procedures, or bylaws. I don't know.
That'll
be-
Policy and procedures.
Code of ethics is in
The
policies
code
and
of
procedures.
ethics is typically in the policies and procedures, because your bylaws, you typically don't revise all that often, but your policies and procedures is more revised in there.
And directors moving from bylaws to policies and procedures, I would remind you that whatever you end up settling on and approving, that document also has to go to city council for approval. It won't necessarily in the future, but because we're hard-coded in the current bylaws say both documents will go to them.
I think we've already said this, but it is very important when we get documents that we get all of the documents. Because I think Ms. Raymond's initial statement was absolutely correct in what she said. That we couldn't just adopt by reference the City of Port Arthur's Code of Ethics because it didn't apply.
Well, I understand, and I will pass that along to Mr. Zach.
Thank you.
What was that comment? What did you mean by we won't have to go back to the city after this is approved, this one?
In terms, sorry, let me just clarify. In terms of your policies and procedures manual, in your current draft of your revision of your bylaws, that article is not in there. So if in fact the city council approved your bylaws in revision, by default they're saying henceforth until we ever change these, if you change your policies, you add a new policy, you take out a procedure, you don't need to bring that to us. But you do right now because we're operating under your currently fixed bylaws, which do call for that.
Where did that come from that we not going to have to go back to them?
Don't have that statement in, you can add it back if you like, but right now that's not there. Now, I'm not talking about bylaws now. I'm talking about simply your document, which those of you that were in place last November, Attorney Zek did explain to the city council what I'm trying, probably inarticulate to explain now. It is appropriate for them to take this up because they're operating under the current bylaws that this corporation adopted. But as the bylaws have been proposed to be revised, that paragraph is no longer there. So if they approved it, they're basically saying, we don't need to see every little change in your policy and procedures. If you want to change these bylaws, bring them back to us. But if you want to take out a comma, a paragraph in your policies and procedures, by the way that you've revised your bylaws, if they are approved, that's just something that doesn't have to go to them.
So who removed that? Who removed that item? I'm just asking.
Attorney Zek,
The board just adopted.
So, in other words, what I'm saying, in other words, it's not in there. And later on, if you decide to start putting stuff in policy and procedures crazily and having it approved, and the rest of the board can't stop it, then it doesn't have to go to the council.
Well, okay. It's a super. Vice President. Four people have it reconsidered. Want to move to fine, you can bring 5 votes if everybody's here. in order to make that change to that bylaws. And you can put that same thing in your policies and procedures. We just need to. But that's how you can stop it.
Just kind of reflecting and maybe a point of clarity that we received from the attorney. So in general, when you have policies and procedures versus bylaws, bylaws are typically not revised as frequently because they are more of kind of a hard code. This is how this body is structured versus the policies and procedures is more of an operational document, and it's more fluid and it's more it more so evolves with the time, right? And especially if there are roles added, removed, if there are departments added, removed, those things are accounted for in their document. And so in the bylaws, as we just approved them, we do not, because that document is so fluid, we do not have to go and have that document approved by city council as well. It just needs to be approved by this body. So it's not that the CEO is acting as a lone wolf and making updates to policies and procedures without any oversight. It's not suggesting that. It's suggesting that the time-consuming process of us approving and then having to bring it before city council is no longer necessary. We can approve that document amongst ourselves without that additional step. Am I correct?
Absolutely,
Okay.
well said.
We want.
Do we have amended bylaws? I know we had that in the bylaws before. I don't recall if I've seen it.
Bylaws, but your policies and procedures.
Even amendment to the bylaws, I don't think it's in here anymore. Anyway, but November. Move on. Madam.
Any other questions regarding all of that? We have the comments and direction for the policies and procedures, so we'll move forward to number 5. Review, discussion, and possible action regarding entering into a professional services and consulting agreement with Retail Strategies, LLC, for the provision of services associated with the implementation of the City of Port Arthur's Downtown Revitalization Plan. Mr. Stokes.
Just a second. Pulled so many. Thank you. Let me just make sure that everyone has located the backup information as well as the proposed document, proposal, so forth and so on. Directors, back in January of this year, this body approved entering into a contract with Retail Strategies for providing professional services connected with the revitalization of downtown. However, when that measure was taken to City Council, several of the council members had some disagreements with the language of the proposal, and I tried to articulate that in the background very simply. Just felt that it smacked too much of potentially recreating the wheel, as opposed to the city was very firm that, hey, we do have a document in place, paid a great deal of time, effort, and funding to put it in place, and we want to see it as it relates to the downtown revitalization portion implemented. So back to the drawing board, if you will. two things occurred in that time frame since January 1. Like I say, getting that feedback from City Council in February and March. Also, as I note in the background, in the back up document, Retail Strategies, through a clerical error, had their registration in the state of Texas lapse, which was an embarrassment for them, but life happens and sometimes things are just overlooked. Since that time, they have corrected that both with the state of, the Secretary of State's office as well as the Comptroller's office. So what is being brought back to you after legal review and feedback and fine tuning is a document that speaks specifically and with more clarity that what we would be doing is taking a leadership role as outlined in the Downtown Revitalization Plan, which is referenced for specifically and only the implementation of this plan, which belongs to the city of Port Arthur, which is a part of an overall master plan. It is not this entity's responsibility or focus to implement all aspects of the master plan. We have nothing to do with sidewalks and streetscapes and so forth and so on. However, as identified back in this document, the Port Arthur Economic Development Corporation does and can play a leadership role as it relates to incorporating and implementing the non-infrastructure related aspects of this revitalization plan. So what this involves is, again, taking that plan, bringing it in alignment. It's several years old, just making sure that all of the various goals and aspirations, as well as the various milestones, have they been achieved? If not, let's make sure they're still relevant, so forth and so on, by taking this, and as you can see in the proposed proposal, a number of stakeholder and back to the community to basically, hey, this is how you felt back in 14, 15, 16. How do you feel about things in 24, 25? And making sure that that then overlays with what has already been decided upon for downtown. So that, in a nutshell, is what's being proposed. There is no change in pricing from what you approved back in January. What this does, like I say, is better clarify and fine-tune what this effort will be, and just as importantly, what this effort won't be. Because as several city council members articulated back then, it could be construed that we were retaining Retail Strategies to do an entirely new strategic document, which is not the case in any way, shape, or form. This, still good, just gonna take it, run with it, and get it going. Questions?
Got a bunch. All right, Mr. Stokes, I'd like to refer you to the Downtown Revitalization Short-Term Work Program. If you can flip to that real quick. All right. The number 3, which is City Council, lead entity. All right. Under our contract, the kickoff onboarding, we get a phone call to where they listen. So you'd have to have somebody that they could listen to. And then we're going to supply us electronically with a community input survey that somebody circulates. I would think we could be in on that, maybe not. But insights of satisfaction of your downtown area. Then they're going to create a current market analysis. then a stakeholder workshop, and they're going to drive down once. Now, my question is the city hasn't done anything to start any of this, and we're not the lead on this. Now, I don't have a problem if the city kicks this off, gets their tax incentive redevelopment zone, I can't remember what that stupid acronym is, but you've got to get those people back on board, okay? You got to create that committee, which is city council. Then the city council also has to create another planning advisory board, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, we're supporting entities in this, but until the city, and most of these items are infrastructure projects, okay? And buying property. Because as it stands right now, until Motiva gets down here, which is going to be your anchor, just like in a big mall you would have back in the day, Sears or Dillard's, you got to get your anchor tenant in. Because your anchor tenant is going to decide how you're going to develop, okay? You can sit there and go, you know what, because part of this is based on tourism and everything else. We went down this road 15 years ago, okay? I think the only thing that our Visitor Convention Bureau spends money now on is advertising for the bird people, because we get one bird that if you're filling out your book, this is a place to be. And it's actually at a wastewater treatment plant. But we've got the bird, all right? But until we get that anchor tenant, we're hopping ahead of ourselves, and we don't have the players involved for them to even talk to. And then our other thing is well, they're supposed to guide you along and your committees along over the phone. Most of it's based on retail. And that's saying we don't even know if the city wants to even take that strategy. We're just kind of hopping out on our own on this. And I think it's way too soon. And then it even gets into a further 3-year, 2-year plan, 5-year plan. I mean, it gets into all kinds of stuff, but the problem is we're not even at step 1. And what they're offering to do, you have to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 done before you can get to number 6, where we come in.
Thank you for that feedback, Director Albright. And my only response to the full board is that I do not think it's necessarily a bad idea for the Port Arthur Economic Development Corporation to play a lead role, albeit a small role, $45,000, but nonetheless a lead role in getting an effort which you just articulated was long ago put in place. If not us, then who? And my suggestion is that we make an investment in being the lead role in moving this process forward.
All right, then answer me this. How can you lead? RZ. Sir.
We do, the Port Arthur Economic Development Corporation does not have anything to do with the city of Port.
Okay, but how are you forcing them into it, sir?
Not forcing anyone into anything. We are simply going to serve as the instrument to make sure that everyone comes to the table, rekindles this, recaptures the dream, updates it, and moves forward. Not forcing anyone to do anything. Folks might decide, no, we don't want to revitalize downtown, or we do not want to have anything to do with the TERS or whatever. But those conversations are not taking place now. This is simply an instrument to move forward with the conversations.
Then my recommendation, sir, a meeting with yeah, we want to keep. I don't think that. Oh, if the problem is get the big boy first. Execute this contract tomorrow. If it says yeah, kickoff call to nobody except to you and maybe some of your staff, but that doesn't do anything. All due respect.
With all due respect, my perspective as someone that hasn't been here all that long is lack of movement, and sometimes someone that must serve as a catalyst to get things moving. If this board then wants to decide that, oh, we'll leave that to the city of Port Arthur, it's perfectly fine. Someone else could argue that, well, what's been done? And perhaps other leadership to spur and bring folks together with a different perspective might be the catalyst.
I have a question. Is the amount not to exceed $45,000, is that a time-bound retainer for retail strategies?
Covers the first year of the project.
Right, and so, to me, I love Port Arthur. I think this is great. However, I hate to echo Director Albright's concerns in that I think before we were to engage to spend money that's time-bound by a year, we need some level of buy-in from 4th Street. Otherwise, we could be putting up $45,000 and it completely goes to waste because we can't get them on the same page as us. I do think we need to be a catalyst, but I think that in that catalyzing, we need to also have some level of partnership and agreement going back into this, because we can assume it's still a strategic priority of the cities to revitalize downtown. But as we see, construction on this building started, I believe, when I was in college. And I am a seasoned professional at this point. We would love to see it, but we historically know better. And so I think we just need to, if we were to enter a deal like this, we need to enter it with caution and make sure we dotted as many I's and as many T's as possible. I think the first one would be some level of engagement with the city manager to ensure that this is still a top strategic priority of theirs.
Folks, I was here for the party groundbreaking or whatever for Motiva. It was a big hoorah. Once it was over with, city went back to their nest. That's the last thing they done. And that's been quite a few years ago. So pushing them, I don't think you can push the city. I don't know what it's going to take besides they're behind the ball on completing anything with Motiva right now. They should be doing lots of infrastructure, and they're not. But that's not what we're talking about. But I just worry about, and it ain't the money, gathering all this information, going over there, and they just tell you, go back to your place. You know, we're not going to deal with you right now. And but they would have to approve this. Is that correct? Okay, and then that might not happen. But anyway, like I said, you know, everybody was so gung-ho with Motiva coming out here, and then Port Arthur just dropped the ball. They did. I don't know what they thought. So anyway.
So what I'm hearing is lack of a better word, more commitment from the city, not just in participation of this, but a broader, do you still, A, believe in your plan? And if A is true, or if A is yes, what is your goal, plan, intent to implement what you're saying that you believe in? And again, my desire, I wouldn't waste you all's time, my thought process, and I hope you can appreciate it without, not casting any doubt upon anyone else. The newcomer says, well, let's take this thing off the shelf. It is got some good stuff in it. It's valuable. If perhaps it's, for whatever reason, other priorities have come up on their end that's taking their time, well, we can at least take the lead in spurring the movement. I do understand everything that you're saying. Not opposed to it, but I just want to reiterate what mine and staff's thought process was. This thing of revitalization needs to get going.
At this point, we have a motion. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a sub-motion that we remove this item and direct the CEO to get with the city manager and the city council of Port Arthur and inform them of this plan and see if they're amenable to moving forward with this.
Can that?
Moved and second to ask. Will this move this item until this CEO has an opportunity to meet with the city manager to see if this is still action of the city of Port. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposition? Motion carries. Agenda item number 7, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the documentation provided by the City of Port Arthur's City Manager and Human Resources Director as it relates to hiring process of PAEDC's Business Attraction, Retention, and Expansion Manager. Mr. Le- Okay, go ahead, make a motion.
I make a motion.
What's the motion?
I make a motion that a recommendation to allow moving expenses and a car allowance to the Port Arthur EDC's Business Attraction and Retention and Expansion Manager.
Second, that motion. Move, ask for documentation. The city manager and human resources director as it relates to the hiring process, allowing for car allowance and moving expenses for this position.
So, benefits.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion.
Say opposition. It's allowed as to, trying to understand what the, and accomplish with the.
My concern. Car allowance. For the city, normal time. because the only person that gets a car allowance at the city of Port Arthur in relocation is the city manager. But that's voted on by council, just like this is voted on with Mr. Stokes. But I do not believe he has the power to grant relocation but as he told us, he got it from the city manager and human resource director. He's allowed to do it, which I'm fine with. I'd just like to see a letter saying, yeah, you can do it.
Again, we've been talking about the city's procedures or policies, and this doesn't follow their policies.
I have a question. This is a literal question to you both because you may know. Said allowances fall under the approved salary, the budget item that we approved, that would have been 23. For instance, the 2 roles, right? The bear manager was one of them. There were 2 management roles included in the budget. If said allowances fall under that line item, that amount, then does your concern still stand? Or
No, if it's allowed under the
I'm not talking about specific line item by name. I was talking about specific line item by amount.
Well, the amount was so I would assume that entire amount goes to that. At that point, do I? But if
I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm playing corporate background versus municipal civic background, which would be that the risk, what risk is there, right? We're talking about the risk on the table of someone's offered, and I'm gonna, an arbitrary number, $100,000, someone's offered, go to 80. Someone's offered $80,000, right? And then it's further defined that 70% of that is the actual biweekly or monthly compensation, right? And then that additional $10,000 is received in benefits or allowances. Do we have a problem with that if that's not clearly defined with the city policy, and that was a decision made still within the parameters, within the amount that was approved by this body when we approved the budget in 23, 24?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, is that a problem?
That not listed in the employment letter. Along with you, because our world here on the structure, car allowances. With
And I understand what you're saying, and just coming from I guess, just a different perspective, because I get that I don't even really know, scratch the surface of municipal law, but just, and maybe my opinion on this is misplaced, but it's almost like, would you prefer to receive your $80,000 on a monthly basis, broken into 12 months? Or would you prefer to receive your $70,000 broken into those 12 months, and then this $10,000 in benefits and allowances, sans taxes? It's, I guess we're trying to parse the marrow from the bone here, but the motion
all
already
under the
carried.
city policy.
Right, I think the question is, does it follow city policy? In the corporate world, there is no policy that says there's a percentage. Well, I mean, I guess there
Perhaps
is,
there
but,
is,
but
but-
perhaps there is, but in municipal government, there is a salary, whatever that salary is, if your benefits are a percentage, everybody gets the same percentage of their benefits. And typically, there are not options to place that amount of your salary somewhere else, typically. Now, I don't know, if that is against city policy, if we do that, but typically, that's not something that happens. That may happen in corporate America.
And
No, and I
ultimately,
understand
just
what
wanna
you're
understand
saying.
the risk. Like, what's the risk in saying this, in saying you can allocate this money to this versus this money is allocated to this? You see what I'm saying? But I will.
It's just a matter
I'll
of
close.
interpretation of city policy. No, I
lay
understand
down my
exactly what you're
questions.
saying.
I'll lay down my questions.
Ms. Jacobs, the thing is you're saying the percent. I mean, the woman got her salary, and on top of her salary, she had other benefits that the city doesn't follow.
Right, but if it fell within that range, right, if it falls within that dollar value range,
I don't
I'm
think
trying to
it-
understand that.
Anyway, yeah, right.
So we'll see, we'll see.
Madam Chair, I'm wondering, in the line of thought that we're going through, are we comparing the employees for EDC and comparing them as city employees? Or we're saying that they must follow the same guidelines that city employees follow? I'm raising the question.
I think we are. I think by simple nature, this is my thought. I think by simple nature, they get the same, all of the EDC employees get the same benefits of other city employees. And by nature of that they would follow the guidelines as city employees because they can transfer to a city department and nothing changes for them.
So that means vacation days, city employees get vacation days, right?
Absolutely.
So anyone over here should get vacation days, right?
Same thing. Very
Okay,
same
so
thing.
there are, and if a city employee receives mileage for reimbursement for travel, then a EDC employee
Absolutely.
receive the same.
You're correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
So I wanted to make sure that I understood if we are following the same protocols associated with city employees as we look at EDC employees. I don't want it to be in one light, they're like city employees, and then in another light, they're EDC employees.
I
Okay?
agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%.
So Gatwood, but you do understand, there's earned vacation and sick leave and unearned sick leave and vacation. And this person went under unearned.
Let's
I-
table
that
that
was-
discussion
yeah,
about people's personnel matters. I mean, yeah, let's just keep it broadly. And if we have to talk about personnel matters, we can go into executive session.
It was
But-
just a broad thing for me, excuse me, Madam Chair, and I do understand the difference because we have earned and unearned vacation days, and we have all of that in the school district. So I'm well aware of what that is like.
Yeah, we just didn't want, I meant we didn't
Yeah.
want to speak
No,
specifically.
I agree with that,
Oh, okay. Okay.
but I was responding to the difference in understanding what is earned and unearned and all of that.
Oh, the motion
I had a question because.
Voted, yeah.
y'all
Okay, we
moved,
voted.
But you reiterated if there was any opposition, and I wanted to be better informed of whether or not I want to be in opposition. Yes, and not necessarily, it's fine. I just wanted clarity about not the justification, but just understand the request better, the context.
So, Mr. Stokes, can you get that letter for us? Okay, all right, thank you. Number 8, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the PAEDC CEO's P-card transactions and all supporting documentation over the past 12 months.
Make a motion.
Or to write on this one.
Make a motion that the CEO provide us with the last 12 months.
Have a motion, please? Oh, it's second, please? You seconded. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition?
Oppose.
Isn't gonna vote, but don't mind that anybody wants to look at his P card. It's an open record, and so I will vote yes, we can get his P card. Agenda item number 9, review and discussion regarding projects under review with Mid-County Plaza LLC. A motion? Second?
Second, yeah. I just wanted to know, a month ago,
I didn't get a sec, oh, you
I
seconded?
did.
Okay.
This Mid-County Plaza LLC was, what came and discussed stuff, and I just wondering where we stand with them, that's all.
We have submitted their proposed terms and conditions to Charlie and his team, and they're currently reviewing it. They received it Friday.
Thank you. There is no action on that item. Review and discussion regarding the press building lease kitchen as it relates to Golden Triangle Catering. There is no, it's not an actionable item. I don't need a motion, so.
Right. Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Stokes. Do you want to?
That's the same thing, I just.
Deputy Miller, would you update the board on that, please?
I'd like to request clarification on what the discussion is regarding, Mr. LeBeouf. No, what is your request on this one? Exactly what
Where
information
we
would you like?
stand, the man came and stood in front of us. Said, fine, we're gonna turn over the building, we're gonna start renting the building, and I just wanna know where we stood with it.
I believe the question here is, first of all, how the board and the CEO want to move forward as far as lease space goes in the building. I think there was discussion on whether it should be turned over to commercial space or being left as an incubator. So until, you know, we get to that solidified plan, I understand he was looking for lease space. So that we just need a clear answer on what it is the board and the CEO want to do as far as how we move forward with lease space for offices there. As to the kitchen incubator, if we still are moving forward in the incubator direction, even with the lease for the kitchen lease space, then we would need to put out an RFP, a request for proposals, from entities such as Mr. Adams' entity to operate that incubator as he proposed.
We have done nothing then. And because the way I understood, if Mr. Stokes, I can recall, after his talking to these fellows, he acted like press building was open for business. That might have been his words. So open for business means rent, whatever you want to do. That's what I understood.
Your understanding is absolutely correct. Deputy Miller, you please correct me if I'm wrong. I do not think that this particular gentleman has contacted us. I do not believe we have an application that has been completed. I do not think that we know how much office space he needs. just since he obviously knows where the press building is, it's a simple drop in. Let's get you an application. Let's get this process going like every other particular prospect does. So you're absolutely right. Just waiting for them to decide what they want to do and come on in and take a tour, point out to Deputy Mueller and her staff what they have in mind in terms of particular space, get them an application, get the process moving. But we've had no.
So I can ask.
Absolutely, sir.
So he has never contacted you, told you what he wants to do, how many offices he wants?
Sir, Mr. Adams did call once following the last meeting where he was present, and he inquired on if anything has been decided as to the incubator and the lease kitchen incubator, and at that point, there was no direction as far as an RFP from the board. So as far as lease space for an office, he has not inquired for an office yet.
Back to the kitchen. So what do we need to do besides him come and we didn't need to give directions. The CEO gave directions, said it was wide open, go for it. So was it not relayed to you?
Honestly, I think there's been miscommunication, and maybe it was my misunderstanding as far as what is meant by wide open if we're going towards.
That's my words.
Just plain commercial office space. So it could be that there was just a miscommunication or misunderstanding on my part. So if that's the case, I will follow up with the CEO and find out where we need to go next.
And I'll have Mr. Adams come back next month and talk about it again then. He wanted to come back this month, and I told him I'd rather him come back next month with more of a plan. I don't know. I think he has a plan.
Director LaVos, don't mean to interrupt you. It would never be my recommendation to this board to proceed with bringing someone into the press building without an RFP. We have spent lots of time with Mr. Adams late last year. Certainly has an interesting proposal, certainly seems to have qualifications. That doesn't mean necessarily, automatically, that there's no one else out there that can provide the types of services that as of yet we haven't completely decided upon, but let's just assume that we decide tomorrow how we want to go about this. I would think that the majority, if not all of this board, would then say, okay, let's see what's out there by way of an RFP. In my conversations with Mr. Adams, and Mueller, maybe you have a different perception, Mr. Adams believes that it has been provided to him. Plain and simple. In other words, I am the one that will be the one in this kitchen and run this incubator and do the programming. May end up being that way, but I would think that we would want at a minimum an RFQ and probably at a reality an RFP, and we're not yet in the position of doing that. I don't want to misjudge the gentleman, but certainly if you're being invited to speak and so forth and so on, you could maybe accidentally believe that, well, I'm it. I'm just waiting for them to give me the keys and I go forward. And if that's certainly what the board wants to do, you certainly can decide that.
That's fine, but like a RFP, if you've been working with him for a year, and we're right here, which we're nowheres, I'm looking at this as like, this is just as bad as the city. For a year? And we ain't done nothing? That just don't make sense to me.
And certainly that if you take that point blank literally, it's sort of like your term wide open. Like you said, your words don't necessarily, you're being figurative. My point is that as we have moved along, trying to make sure everything was in place, making sure that the building is 100% complete, and making sure that there is an overall thought process that this corporation has agreed upon, it's not as though the only thing that we are focused on is figuring out that kitchen. We do have a very large company. We have lots of things going on. We have, you know, if all of the attention went to that, then there would be someone complaining that, well, gee, you're not paying any attention to filling up Spur 93. Every day is filled with decisions that you're trying to move forward on, and all I'm saying is that we're moving towards a process. It doesn't necessarily help if someone is inadvertently conveyed that, oh, well, that process doesn't apply to me. It's already been decided. I will be the one that runs this thing.
Mr. Stokes, I think that what we need is what those processes will be and what our determination is. We have a lot of discussion. This is my opinion. We have a lot of discussion about what we should be doing and where we should be going, but I would like to see a recommendation from you and your staff as the professionals in this area as to where we are going. The strategic plan, I don't know if that's going to address it, but I think the press building has been a vision for the EDC since, I know, for the past 4-5 years. We need to decide what that press building is going to do. This is Ingrid's opinion, and where it's going to go. We have danced around it for quite some time, not any fault of anybody's, but I think based on this discussion and previous discussions, we really need to make some decisions on what we want it to be and where we want it to go and how we want to get there. And we really need to do that, in Ingrid's opinion, in the next 3 months, because I think we have spent a lot of time discussing this, and that's why the board is kind of moving in different directions, because we just need to know professionally what we need to do. And in my opinion, we need to know that in the next 3 months. That's my opinion, because yes, there is Spur 93 and it's all those things. That is a new, very nice facility, and we need to know where we're going with it.
My thing is just the economics of it. Spur, anything else is not eating up our money. That press building is eating up our money. We need to do something with that press building. I mean, it's costing us a lot. Well, you know, I mean, it's in the budget. You know what it costs. And we just need to do something.
Mr. Attorney, it's a crazy question because I do not know the answer to this. Incubate a little restaurant under an A. I think we need to answer that question because now, and don't get me wrong, because I know one way I can get around it, but I don't believe in it. And that's, well, I want to start this and I want to go into industrial catering, okay? Well, you know, I don't have any business experience. I don't have anything, but, you know, I need you to help me out. I need you to give me some classes, give me some training. Let me try this thing out. But to me, I don't think that, to me, that's not an incubator situation. I think it's for the people in this building, the people in the press building, City Hall, and whoever else is coming downtown for a place to eat. And don't get me wrong, I believe in the RFQ or RFP, whatever, you know, Mr. Stokes wants to do, but I just don't see that as an incubator. And I'll go you one step even farther. The problem I really got with incubating that, because it's still going to come to us, is we put equipment in that facility. And I don't want to be responsible if the wrong person gets in there and trashes the equipment. We're constantly having to send a repairman over there because the equipment belongs to us. So then it's, do you do rent to own? Do you do what? But, you know, somebody goes in there for a year and just, I'm not expecting anybody here to be a kitchen expert. I'm not. Trashes the thing out, and then, okay, you got no equipment, so now where are you going? And I'm curious how you deal with that.
Your microphone, sir.
Sorry, yes, ma'am. To answer your question, I believe that it is a specialized incubation facility because restaurants have to have kitchens.
To have what?
Kitchens. Restaurant has to have a kitchen in order to be a restaurant, or has to have some means for preparing food. That's the sine qua non of a restaurant. It serves food.
It's a full kitchen.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying.
But is it a legal incubator project?
That answer I
So, Director Albright, as you know, amongst a series of questions, one of the things you recently asked of Attorney Zeck and myself was that very question, specifically, and I quote, the law that says a type A EDC can spend money on an entrepreneurship program, unquote. What I will do is provide the answer that was provided to Director Albright, to the full board, and perhaps we can pick up the conversation once you've been given the law and go from there.
But the law, and don't get me. I can come in and ask. Meeting. Criteria. Because if we're to know anything about trucking or anything else. How these trucks at what point before or during the process, if I'm a nine-way idiot, do we still as a board? So I'd like criteria on this because it scares the heck out of me. Because it's a sideline thing. It's not a major deal.
Well, I think that, again, it just needs to be a priority. I think the staff to kind of tell us what direction they'd like to go in so that we know where we're going and how we would approve other projects. With that,
I'd like to
it
have
is
that come
9.
back. I'd like to have that come back by next meeting.
Okay, Mr. Oaks. Is that
Madam
possible?
Chair,
Yes.
as you very well articulated, I think that the answer is better suited for that 3-month time frame as we are wrapping up budgeting, as we are wrapping up a number of priorities and we move into. I think that's something where you bring back at least suggestions and have conversations as opposed to 1 month from now, a definitive answer is going to be generated. That's no different from a month from now, a definitive budget without any workshops, without any further conversation. So my direction, and in keeping with the spirit of what you said, is I have a timeline that I provided you all on the strategic plan. We're working towards that. And embedded in that is the very answer to the question, and then the board can take that answer, decide where it wants to go from there. But 30 days from now, given that we've got to get a budget done.
I got a question.
Oh, look, before
Well,
you
we've
start
got
on the
part of this
budget-
budget based on this,
Oh,
the entrepreneurship program.
yeah. About the budget, okay. Let's talk about the budget. It is 9:12. No, but we have to go to the budget was the line item.
Okay.
It's under, we have to talk about that, then he can
Okay.
give us unless, since we know that we're gonna have questions about the budget, that we just wanna schedule a workshop for the budget as opposed to having that discussion tonight. And I will apologize to the finance director who has taken her whole evening to be here with us, and we're not gonna talk about the budget. I apologize wholeheartedly to this, she's sitting up there, the City of Port Arthur's finance director. I really apologize to you for that. Yeah, I was talking about,
Madam Chair,
yes.
what we will do first thing in the morning is poll the board to try and get some potential dates. And we'll probably look at multiple dates, as Director Albright suggested seemingly a long time ago earlier. We're probably looking at one or two on our way to finalizing. And the hope, I think, if I have heard correctly from the board, is that a goal would be at its September meeting to have everything in place to make.
Vote
to
on the
vote
final
it and submit
budget
it
for submission.
to be included. So we will do that first thing in the morning.
Okay, with that, we'll give you the floor. It's yours.
All righty.
You have 10 minutes.
That is, believe me, not a problem. I did not write a full-blown major activities for the month of July, because as I went and looked at July, 80% of the days were spent on working with Deputy Miller in one way or another on recruiting. Seems like we kind of lived in the conference room over the month of July. And when we weren't doing that, it was getting ready for the two workshops and getting ready for this meeting. So those were the major activities. What I'd like to do, Madam Chair, is just simply send out, you all have the documentation that would have been in my report. Let me just send out, in the interest of time, what I would have articulated tonight. And I can certainly then come back at our workshop. We can make that one of the agenda items if there are any questions, any follow-up, so forth and so on. I think that you might have a...
Admissible by the board? Does the
a
board
question.
agree with that? Yes.
I do have one question.
Okay, I'll start with Mr. LeBeouf. He said it first.
Ms. Holmes, 3 months ago, gave you a timeline to get your strategic plan to us, and this is 3 months. It's been 20 months since you started it, so I don't know, if you want to use them words, that's long enough. We have no idea what your plan is. She done mentioned that a second ago, and we're still, don't look at me like that, and we're
Look,
still.
I'm just waiting for you to...
Yeah.
I'm trying not to interrupt you, sir.
And we're still working on nothing for 20 months. A strategic plan, but we don't know what's in the plan. This is month after month after month. She gave you 3 months ago directions to bring the strategic plan to the board tonight, and I didn't see it in my package.
Point of clarification, as a matter of fact, I went back and read those minutes, and I also then got direction and clarification, and I just alluded to the fact that the month of August, there was going to be drafts provided. It wasn't necessarily tonight, it was the month of August, with the plan of getting that feedback and incorporating it and finalizing in September, going into the new fiscal year that would have been adopted in coordination, in conjunction with the budget. That is still the plan. That's what I'm working towards. So I apologize if there was a misunderstanding that something was going to be presented tonight, but you will have, in accordance with what I understood, and have not heard any objection from anyone that I've consulted, drafts in August, get your feedback, incorporate that, finalization in September.
I don't know who you're consulting with. This is what I heard. This is what she gave you. Like I said, 20 months is enough. We don't know what your plan is. And everything we're talking about, including a budget, how can we work on a budget with a plan and we don't know what the plan is?
Being any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yes.
Mr. Stokes, your impact incentive policy?
Is that a part of
That's part of his report,
Oh.
yeah. Do you want us to talk about this and approve it after the budget?
No, sir, what I'd like to do is, as I mentioned, let me go ahead and get my thoughts out, just put them in writing, which I would have covered tonight, and then let's put it as a item on one of our probably 2 workshops. In
Yes?
conjunction, yes, sir, in
Okay.
conjunction with what you were just thinking, but.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
I had something else, but I don't see it on here. In our workshop, you had a headline, Diamond, a Diamond Conference. Maybe that was a Diamond's Women Conference or some kind of conference. What was that about?
It was a luncheon in conjunction with an overall conference. That was last Friday, so it's already come to pass.
But,
At a table.
what?
We had a table.
Okay, and that came through the board to ask? I don't remember, but I asked Charlie, and Charlie's not here, and he was supposed to get me some information. Again, I don't know if this is charity, I don't know what it is. You can ask Mr. Stokes. And is this legal to get a table at this place? Charlie was going to research that out. He didn't know it off the top of his head.
I've allowed the Prairie View EDC to purchase a table at the volunteer fire department's annual fundraiser as it comes under promotion was my reasoning. Now, what Charlie's thoughts are on that, I don't know, but I will bring the question to him.
I asked him twice, and he ain't here tonight, so if you would.
So move.
Have a second on that?
Second.
It's been moved and second to adjourn I'm sorry.
I have something to be put on the,
Oh, yes, any other agenda items for next meeting?
I have one, and I'll.
Okay. At a you send that blank form to the board by way of email?
You mean the one that was approved by the
Last
board last?
email,
Okay,
yes.
sure.
Your last form, evaluation. The meeting has been adjourned, and you all have a good rest of your evening.